The group can keep talking if they want, but they might be heard. Although I was watching for a little bit last week, and it is very difficult to hear the group. Every once in a while you can make out some things, so yeah. And for that reason I only watched for a few minutes, so if this is fulfilling somebody's need. But yeah, it was real tough to engage without hearing all the interaction going on. So I was hoping my voice would recover, but it didn't. So I don't know what I'm still fighting with. So let's begin with a word of prayer. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we give you thanks. We, again, as we gather together in your word, to let this word unfold before us, let it do exactly what the text, what we learned last week in the text, but also as it is played out this week, about how it embeds faith, and from that faith it gives proclamation. So guide and lead us in our time together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I was told we're picking up at 8:22.
Yep.
Okay?
I couldn't remember.
And that's why I was hoping I'd catch in on all the thing, and it was just becoming too difficult because I wanted to see how to play off of because what you did last week with the parable of the sower, with the lamp, and with the interaction of Jesus with his family, is now going to be played out in these next sections. Again, what happens, as we've seen a pattern in Luke, you get a series of teaching, and then you get it lived out, usually in the forms of healings or miracles, and that's what's happened here. You had a series of teachings, and now we're going to get a series of miracles on how that where he amplifies or explains the teaching through lifestyle application. So that's basically what will be happening. So keep remembering your discussion with the parable of the sower, also the lamp under the jar, and the interaction of that relational aspect. Who truly is in relationship with Jesus? And as we see it play out in these next stories, hopefully it will broaden it out, and well, let's just move from there. Somebody read 22 to 25.
I'll read the message here because it's really a little bit different than what the NIV says. So
The message is always a little different.
well, this one here is going to be a little bit more different, I think. One day, he and his disciples got in a boat. "Let's cross the lake," he said, and off they went. It was smooth sailing, and he fell asleep. A terrific storm came up suddenly on the lake. Water poured in, and they were about to capsize. They woke Jesus. "Master, Master, we're going to drown." Getting to his feet, he told the wind, "Silence," and the waves, "Quiet down." They did it. The lake became smooth as glass. Then he said to his disciples, "Why can't you trust me?" They were in absolute awe, staggered and stammering. "Who is this anyway? He calls out to the winds and sea, and they do what he tells them."
Wow.
It wasn't that different.
Well, I thought,
You
said,
know-
why can't you trust me? I said, "Where's this guy in here?"
Well, yeah, I think that would carry the thing. I didn't like the translation of is they were in awe. Again, those of you that are following along in verse 25, where he says, "Where's your faith?" and they were afraid. And there are sometimes, and we've seen this, aren't there times when fear is awe?
Right.
I don't know if necessarily here, because again, you've got to compare these. You got to go back to the parable of the soils, the parable of the sower, and the ones that are coming up. Because the parable of the sower is being played out here, whether you realize it or not. Because what is going with the parable of the sower? What is the outcome of the seed?
It grows. Produces fruit.
Produces faith.
Yeah.
The fruits are the works of faith. So the parable of the sower is really about faith and what happens with faith. You know, faith that never gets implanted. That's the path. Faith that is implanted, and then the troubles of this world, being in a boat that's going to capsize, the troubles of this world, you know, then you get the ones with living with the world, you know, living in the cares of the world. That's the one that chokes it out, and then finally the one where it bears fruit. So it's really about faith. And watch each one of these miracle stories. It's all about faith. Thereby, yes, his translation is, trust me. Why don't you trust me? But I think really to hold this theme, the question that is in the ESV, and I don't know what the other translations have, the question in the ESV we've got to hold on to. Where is your faith? Because that question is going to travel in each one of these miracle stories.
Actually, it was interesting. The New English translation used exactly the same term. Where is your faith? Now, instead of awe, it used amazed.
Here, the NIV is fear and amazement.
Yeah. And I really think that the fear, not the awe, but the fear and amazement, I think both of those have to be held there.
Right. And the NET
Because they're fearing, but there's also a sense of amazement when they see Jesus in this.
And the New Living kind of does that. It does, the disciples were terrified and amazed.
Yeah. Going across to the other side, there's always traveling, there's always movement. I looked to see it. Typically when they say to the other side, it's usually going to the Gentile side, but I looked back and I couldn't figure out where he was at to where he was entrapped, because I know he does get to Gentile territory in the next section, but they sail again. So I didn't know if this was in Gentile territory or not, or heading in that way. It probably is, but storm came. Typically, if you go Old Testament view, and again, when people are going to hear this gospel, they're going to be firmly entrenched in the Old Testament. So when they hear a windstorm, when they hear trouble on the sea, that is usually the foreboding of evil. The place of evil was the sea. And so the windstorm is... Was there a reason for the disciples to be afraid?
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
As human beings, if you've ever been to sea in a storm, and I was on a 306-foot long boat.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when it was doing 25-degree rolls,
Right.
I was afraid.
Yeah,
Well-
but did you have Jesus sitting beside you?
Well, Lisa, don't get ahead of ourselves here. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
We know things that they didn't know.
But the reality becomes, it's not only just a storm, but Bob, your translation carries it. This thing's about ready to capsize. You know, it says it's filling with water. Well, what does that mean? You know, if you ever, I don't do it very often, but when you go out in canoe or go out in a boat, there's usually water that gets in. Somehow, some way, there's Jack, you go fishing. I'm sure water gets in.
You step out of the water into the boat.
There's water there's usually water, some water, so water's in the boat. No, the sense of this is water is filling the boat. So there's a sense of fear here. They feared for their lives because they sensed the danger. And they went and woke him. And I hear that word now, it just means a whole different thing. You know,
Not the
this is truly the woke culture.
They got him out of his sleep.
Yeah. But, you know, I think sometimes we give the disciples a bad rap in this story. But if you think about it, you had enough disciples, and again, we don't know how many were there and who were there. My guess, though, Peter, James, John, and Andrew were there, because they usually were around. Had they encountered storms?
So they were fishing.
Had they been in the position of having to rely on their knowledge of handling past storms to take care of this storm? Could they have done that? How often do we do that, where we get into a place where we try to figure it out, and then we get to the end of our rope, and then we go, "Oh God, please." We go to him in prayer last. What did the disciples do first? They go wake him up. I think sometimes that gets lost in the story that, oh, the disciples were fearing and because they had Jesus in the boat, but they went to him first. Now, granted, I don't think they fully realize who this Jesus in the boat is, but they went and wake him up.
Are we to assume, though, that maybe they thought he could do something, even though the last sentence or two, then it makes it sound like maybe they didn't know?
And this again is where the parable of the sower is getting played out here. Using this one as the starting point, because again, I think the question is going to roll us out. Because I think because Jesus' question, where is your faith? And I hope you hear that question correctly. It probably, and this, Bob, this would be where your translation, where this would fit your translation. Instead of where is your faith, in whom is your faith? Go ahead, Dan.
About this, where have you placed your faith?
Right, and that's the sense, in whom. Where have you placed your faith?
Yeah, he's saying you put your faith in the boat, really? You think that's what's going to save you? The boat?
And again, let's remember the boat imagery here. Do sometimes people place their faith in the church rather than in Jesus Christ himself?
Yes.
Or in the Word.
Go a little bit more on that. You mean in Jesus Christ or in the Word? Equating those two?
No, the Word being the Word of Christ. Our Word versus a earthly interpretation or culture or anything else that takes away from the Word. The true Word.
Right, and that's the church. The have you put your faith in the church, in the organization, the way it's played out, or have you placed your faith in Christ himself? Because again, the parable of the sower, how does faith get implanted?
Through the Spirit.
Hearing.
Through the seed. And what is the seed? The Word of God. Yeah. And have they heard the Word of God? Yeah.
Have they seen them?
Are they kind of getting it? I'd say yeah. They're kind of getting it because they went to him first. But Jesus knows there's still something missing. Because again, look at their response. When Jesus says, "Where's your faith?" they have this ambivalent reaction. They're trembling, they're fearful, and they're amazed. But then they go, "Who then is this?" They still don't know.
Well, I think one of the things when you talk about did they expect him to do anything, it may have been more the point of he was sleeping and they were about ready to drown. It might be a good idea to wake him up so he doesn't drown while he's asleep.
Yeah.
That's
But-
cool, I never read it that way.
But they
I
still
never did.
but they still called him master.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I really think this story sets up the next three miracles. I think this story sets up our hearing to, okay, what then? The question just drives us. What then is faith? What then is faith? And it will continue to build. By the way, commentaries are helpful. Turn to Jonah, chapter 1. I did not know this. This did not come into my head, but the commentary directed me to it. And it was just interesting to read this in reflection of this story. So we just read, this very familiar Jesus in the boat with the disciples, and Jonah chapter 1. Let me read this. You can follow along if you just want to listen to it, and listen to it in the same sense of what you just heard with Jesus and the disciples. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, "Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me." But Jonah rose to flee Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Sound familiar? Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship and had laid down and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, "What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, that we may not perish." And they said to one another, "Come, let us cast lots that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, "Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation and where do you come from? What is your country and of what people are you?" And he said to them, "I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, "What is this that you have done?" For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. Then they said to him, "What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us?" For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them. Therefore they called out to the Lord, "O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood, for you, O Lord, have done as it pleases you. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleases you." So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows.
Message likes the word "all," they use "all."
Okay. And again, remember, Jesus in his ministry, when they ask him about him, he says, look for the sign of Jonah. So Jesus himself compares himself with Jonah, because again, with the casting into the sea, he is in the belly of the big fish, equating that with being in the tomb with Christ. So again, you have this thing going on with people not quite understanding what they are seeing. And I think getting back into our text then in Luke is they're getting an idea, but the question that ultimately drives this section, which again drove the parable of the sower, is what is faith? Where is your faith? Where do you place your faith?
See, we all have faith. Everyone has faith.
Right.
Pretty much in equal, almost precisely equal supply. We have the faith of a human, and we put it in all kinds of different stuff.
Yep.
And he's asking them, where is it? Where did it go? Oh, it's over there. It belongs over here.
It's standing right in front of you.
Right.
Right. Anything else? Go ahead.
Just on Dan's point, the faith they originally had was in the boat, the safety of the boat, and the,
That's right. I think you're reading it the way I am.
Right. In human stuff. Yep. Moving on.
I just want to go on record as saying the next time you bring up Jonah, I'm just gonna go on a 4-hour detour. Because, that is my number one book in the Bible.
Well, sounds like a Bible study.
Well, one of the first times we sat down and talked with one another, you mentioned that. I said the same thing, I guess. Well, that's one you can do. But the other one was Leviticus.
Yeah.
You said you liked Leviticus. I said, go for it.
My 1 and 2, those are really my 2 favorite books in the Bible.
Yeah. Moving on. Verses 26 to 39.
I'll read it.
Okay.
Then they sailed to the country of I don't know that word.
Gerasenes.
Gerasenes. Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he He cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirits to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would not break the bonds and be driven by the demon in the desert, but he would. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion, for many demons have entered him." And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs were feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep banks into the lake and were drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the, I forgot how to say it. Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him.
Okay, now we are definitely in Gentile territory. And it's,
We'll have no pigs, right?
well, especially when you get when Luke gives the description that the Gerasenes is opposite Galilee. I mean, he physically tells you this is on the exact other side. We're going into we're steeped into Gentile territory. And then you get this beautiful description. Jesus steps out onto the land. And as we will see in the stories coming up, Jesus's physical, it was in the last story. Jesus's physical presence is important. The disciples got about that much. They knew his physical presence was important. So they woke him up. Master, Master, we are perishing. They didn't know what to do with it, but they knew his physical presence was important. Not a great deal, but they knew. And so when he steps out onto the land, we get Luke giving us this description of the importance of Jesus's physical presence. And he gets met, there met him a man. So this man strolls up to him. And he's got demons. Interesting thing, do the demons know who he is?
Yes.
And when the last time we encountered a demon was in 434, and they called him the Holy One of God. Here he calls him the Son of the Most High God. So they know who he is. And the one thing I forgot to mention in the last story, we have to bring up Jesus' first sermon again. See if you can remember. What was the key word that I said was centered in that prophecy from Isaiah? Is the word release. All of these miracles are about release. Because look at the bondage this guy was in. He was in Gentile territory.
Was he a Gentile?
He was in Gentile territory.
I would make you assume he was.
So had this happened after the servant who asked Jesus to help her child, and he made the comment about the dog getting scraps? Or before? Because didn't he answer her that he was
Yeah,
here for the Jews?
but what's crossing in my mind was that one of the Sunday texts in Mark?
I don't know. I
See
thought
that,
it
and that's where I'm trying to follow. I don't think we had that one in this text.
No.
I don't recall it.
was. Okay.
But Jesus has already been ministering to Gentiles.
Okay.
He's been ministering to Gentiles all the way up through here. I mean, Matthew being a tax collector, you know, we had the centurion with his servant. So we've had Gentiles introduced here. Jack.
It's important to remember, one of our Wednesday Bible studies, we go back, I believe it was in the book of Acts, it talks about this man later on. He is a Gentile. And he does do exactly what Jesus tells him to do. He goes and tells everybody, and because of him and his message, he's instrumental in the belief of the
Okay.
town of that
Okay.
region. I don't, if you remember.
Ted.
Yeah, this, actually, the location is on the southeast side of Galilee. It would be the opposite side of, where Magdala. It
Okay.
is a Gentile side, and a lot of the Greek influences on
Okay.
this side is
Okay.
where it's located.
So it's Gentile territory. He's living among the tombs. That's bondage. He's kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles,
Which he brings.
which is physical bondage. And then he's driven by the demons into the desert. Again, this is another story of release that we need to hear in here. So this man comes and he falls down before Jesus. Usually when we think of falling down before Jesus, we think of what?
Kneeling.
Yeah, bowing, servitude.
It's worship.
Right.
My thing here is he has the posture of worship, but does he have the act of worship?
They're afraid of who he is. They know who he is, and they know that he has authority over them. Because they plead with him, don't throw us into the abyss. So they know what he can do.
They know what he can do, but would the demons worship him though? That's what I'm saying. It's a posture of worship.
It's rebellion.
And I think sometimes that's what demons will do. They will do something that appears to be, but is really thumbing their nose at it.
Have the form, but not the heart.
And so, he asks him what the name, and again, culturally back in the, if you would name something, you basically had authority over that thing. Again, that's why they proclaim. That's why the demons proclaim who Jesus is, because they think by naming him they have authority over him. But then Jesus flips it on them and asks, "What's your name?" And so, legion, for many demons have entered. So there's not just one demon, there are many. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. So how do you play out this story that Jesus casts these? Number one, Jesus listens to their begging and obeys their begging. Or Jesus ruins the livelihood of some herdsmen. Because I know that's where some people want to go with this story.
I've actually heard that one there.
Yeah?
And they used that to lead up to why the crowd said, go away.
Well, I would presume, yeah, I would presume that's why. But again, let's put this back to the question that needs to overarch this. Where's your faith? Where's your faith? Does God allow the rain to fall upon the believer and the unbeliever?
Yes.
And that was the interesting thing. And again, I look to, that's why I have commentaries, because I look to those scholars for insights. This is Jesus being merciful to the demons. You know, he it's not being an obedience to the demons, it's being merciful to the demons. Because do the demons eventually get bound?
Yeah, into the pigs.
Well, no, I would say into eternal damnation. Because you don't know what happened to the, you know they're drowned, but what happened to the demons? Can demons be drowned? I don't know. Dan, have you done any demonology study?
I thought that was a serious question. No, I haven't.
Okay. No,
Here's what my thought was. These demons are communicating, they're speaking, and we know so little that we should say little.
right.
Like, don't draw any really firm conclusions about what's going on here because
Right.
we know so little. And when they're speaking, the temptation is to rush to interpretation, and I won't go there.
And so, you know, with these demons, the merciful, and again, that's where, yes, you don't deal with the demons because the focus of the story is not on the demons. Who's the focus of the story on? The man. And again, the demons was the greatest bondage that he had. Not being in Gentile territory, not living among the tombs, not being taken out to the desert, but having the demons. And that's really where Jesus' mercy comes, is Jesus found a way, and a very interesting way, because just back in 429, there was the story of the people that saw the miracle, and they wanted to get rid of Jesus himself. What did they want to do? They wanted to throw him off the cliff. So there's some of that imagery from 429. I'm turning back there. Again, it's the story of it comes right before the story of the man that he cleansed from a demon. He had just preached, and they wanted to, throw him off the hill. And here Jesus does it. through the pigs, an unclean demon with an unclean animal being connected to one another, being thrown into the lake, being thrown into that place that they saw as being that imagery of chaos in the world. Jim?
And I'm not sure, because it's the demons themselves that ask not to be sent to the bottomless pit, but they're the ones that also suggest the pigs. And how often is it that sometimes, especially, that things will happen where that type of approach of, well, here's what I'd like to do, still ends up, because we don't know as far as drowning if they didn't end up in the pit, because he never said I won't do it. He just responded to their request.
Right. But again, I'll go with Dan. Don't go to, we don't know. We don't know. But it afforded the opportunity. Again, what plays out here is, where is your faith? Because you have different actors here. You have the demoniac, and this becomes that beautiful image. When the demoniac first approaches Jesus, what is his posture?
Bowing.
Okay.
Servitude.
Falling before. What is the demoniac's posture after? Because this turn is significant. The herdsman sees what happens. They flee. They go tell everybody in this town what had happened. Then, all the curiosity seekers go out and they want to see what's up. They came to Jesus. They not only see Jesus, but they find this man. And what is the state of this man?
He's demon free.
Look at the description is so critical, because it's a 180.
He's sitting at Jesus' feet.
Yeah, he's no longer naked, but he's clothed. He's no longer ranting, but he's in his right mind. He's no longer falling down before, but he's seated beside. Seated beside would be the posture of a student with the teacher, wanting to hear the word. And so, again, where is your faith? So do you think Jesus was sitting there talking with them at that point? I can imagine.
When I read this, I try not to get sidetracked with anything but the focus of that man.
Right.
And Jesus' ministry to that man. He crossed across the Sea of Galilee, steps out of the boat, drives out the demons of this man, and then tells this man, this is your ministry, stay here and declare my word. And then he gets back in the boat and goes to the other side. He came over for one person. He came to my life for me. I mean, it's,
Right.
it's that one man was important, and just as each of us is important, he would come to us individually.
And what did I say at the start of this? Because of the way it was worded. He stepped out of the physical presence of Jesus is very important. And again, it showed there when he's sitting beside this man. The physical presence, and that's why it doesn't say that in the text, but I can just imagine Jesus speaking with him now. Because his command is, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. Was it just this one act, or is there more?
If it was only this one act, that's a lot.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But again, what is the danger with the focus on the one act? And I think this is where maybe the disciples had some problems. This is also where a lot of the other people around them had problems. If you get focused on the act,
You're not focused on the person.
you're missing Jesus.
Jesus becomes a means
Yeah.
to an end. You want what Jesus can give you, but
Right.
but you're not ready for Jesus.
You start getting back to the.
Right.
And in fact, maybe that answers the difficult question of this text, which is why does, when demons beg Jesus for something, Jesus gives it to him. When this guy begs Jesus for something, Jesus doesn't give it to him. And maybe the answer is in there somewhere. It's that Jesus isn't a means to what you want
Right.
from him. His ways are not your ways.
But Jack, you picked up on something where when he says the man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him.
He didn't.
He's generally Jesus, before he sends, what does he do? He disciples. And so there had to be enough there to disciple him, to send him to go because it says declare and proclaim. And oh yeah, by the way, it's declare how much God has done for you. And he went proclaiming what? Look at the text, folks. Jesus says, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. And then when we finish the text, what does it say? He proclaims what? Jesus. What Jesus has done. Now we're getting the identity of who Jesus is in this. The man got it. The man got it. Again, where is your faith? Where the disciples had spent so much. Again, can getting it come instantaneously? Yes. For most of us, does getting it come instantaneously? No. But again, Jesus' goal is to be revealed so that we could be sent as revealers of him, of proclaimers of the word. Yeah. Anything else, Bob?
Maybe I'm making too much of this, but between the two different, in the NIV it says, return home and tell how much God has done for you. And the other translation says, tell everything God has done in you.
Mm. That's your Message translation?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and see what the words do there.
James says, how great things God hath done unto thee. It's all.
Yeah. But notice again, fear plays a big part. Fear plays a big part of not getting who Jesus is.
I have a question for you.
I'll see if I have an answer for you.
Right. It's a bit technical, but Luke makes the man the subject of this story in the early part of the text. There met him a man. The man is in the nominative. The man is the subject of the sentence. Jesus is the direct object. And it seems like Luke is suggesting that, he's taking our focus off of Jesus as the nominative, as the subject. And he's turning our eye to this man. He's saying, this man met Jesus. When Jesus got out of the boat, and this man met Jesus. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Why does Luke change the nominative away from Jesus and put it on the man? It's as if he's driving the story with the man rather than with Christ.
When I saw that, And especially when he falls down before him, my thought was, who's falling down before him? Is it the man or is it the demons? That's where I was looking at that sense of a man. The focus on a man is that sense of a man versus the demons that are possessed inside the man.
Which verse
So-
are you looking at?
He's looking at it's one of the early ones.
It's 27, and I
Yeah.
don't know whatever everyone else's translations say, but I can tell you what the Greek says. The Greek has
Right.
the man is subject to the sentence.
Right.
and
It-
Jesus is the
it's-
direct object.
My sense would be, oh man. Again, I'm looking at it in the sense of this question driving this whole chapter. Where's your faith? And it's approaching that one who is the center of our faith, being in the presence.
Well, the story begins with the man as the focus and ends with the man as the focus. But the man's faith and obedience.
It's an unusual construction
Right,
in Luke.
right.
Is Luke trying to, is he subtly suggesting that that this particular story cause us to, is he trying to help us personalize this story in some way by focusing on the man instead of on Jesus? I don't know, it's the question that's out there that I don't have much of an answer for. I know there's more parallels with Jonah in this text, if you'd like me to talk about that.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's one of those things where, yes, the man is in the nominative. You know, Ted's got the way it's as Jim Veltz would say, it's done woodenly. So it just takes the Greek test.
Is that a Young's?
It's just a parallel.
Oh, okay.
But woodenly, yes, the man is in the nominative case, but Jesus still is the focus, because woodenly it goes. Let's see if I can find it here again. Going out, and him onto the land met him a man certain out of the city who had demons for a long time. So met him. The focus is still being placed on Jesus.
Of course, it's Jesus that's being met. But
Right.
He doesn't even mention Jesus' name. He uses a pronoun.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that there's something here of why Luke doesn't do this in the other miracle stories.
Does it again? Let's go back to the parable of the sower. Again, was the focus there on the sower or on the soil?
It's on the soil.
Maybe that's what's going on here.
It is what's going on. I'm trying to figure out why it's happening. I'm trying to figure out what.
Because again, we're playing out that parable in these stories.
That's what
So here's a soil.
Okay.
The disciples are very prevalent in that first story. Here's a soil,
Okay.
and the troubles of the world came up, and what's the word that is used for that one where it's not choke, because
Is it the one where the birds of the air ate it?
no, it just withered. Okay, so yeah, but isn't that what happened to the disciples? Didn't they wither in the face of the storm? Okay, and so
When he was being crucified.
here here you have the man, the demoniac. He's being choked out by the cares of the world. And actually, they do say the word that is used for choke back in verse 7 of that parable, I think it's verse 7. When you get to verse 33, the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. That word for drowned is the same word as the word choked. So the pigs were choked. And again, go back to the Old Testament. If a pig was choked, what did the pig still have within it? Blood. Not a proper sacrifice. So, Dan, you're right. There's other things going on here. So I think that then becomes, so the first one is the disciples who are withering because of the difficult circumstances of the world. This is the cares of the world, trying to choke out, and actually did to the pigs, but not to the man. We won't move on because there's too much in the next section too. We got like 4 minutes. We only got 4 minutes. Please read the next story prior to next Monday. Because again, there's a ton there. And try to look back on what's going on here. And again, keep in mind is, where is your faith? Because Jesus specifically mentions it in the next text, where he has not mentioned it in these first two. But again, that's the sense of the parable of the sower. It's about the seed that is implanted that creates faith. And so that's why I just have to imagine that when that demoniac is sitting in the posture of a student at the feet of Jesus, that there's talking going on. There's teaching going on. There's word being implanted, because he's going to send him now. Go tell him, because again, when he sends him, go tell him how much God has done for you. It's not just only about the healing. It goes back to Jesus' presence.
He has never done a miracle without a message. And the miracles always, whether it was always something spiritual and physical. They were always tied together.
And the next one just really blows everything up. Because the first miracle is about God's authority over creation. This one obviously is God's authority over demons. The next two are more centered on that which we go through in our daily life. Illness and death coming together in the two. And the two, yeah, you got a little child, you got a woman, outcasts. So you got outcasts again. But yeah, there's so much going on there. So join us next week. We'll pick up at verse 40. Again, Dan, did you make it further than I did? No. No, I just want to make sure that he doesn't go farther, that he can run off 2-3 chapters when I'm gone and I
We
go,
joked about that last week.
did ya? Well, it's good to see all of you. We'll be back next Monday. Join us in that. We'll say goodbye to the Facebook crowd. Go and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. And it didn't work. Let's try again.